Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a minute, but I've been working on things behind the scenes. Some of you who have been here, you know my whole backstory. So I am restarting my business, and because of that, I've had to really pause and focus on the main thing. But this is not just a desire. It is a calling for me to be here on YouTube. So I'm getting back into it. And what really pushed me, I've been like really coaching myself, like, man, you got to get back on this, you got to get back on this. And what really pushed me was I was watching a YouTuber I follow talking about a tree that she had in her yard, and it was growing really fast. And her husband were happy about it because they thought it was gonna reinforce a fence situation they had going on. And they were basically excited about it. And they were just watching how it grew really, really fast, and were super surprised. Then they came to realize that it wasn't in fact a tree, it was a weed. And not only was it growing really fast, but it was flowering. So therefore it was going to be spreading itself all over the yard. And I found this interesting because it made me think of my own weeds, right? That in it of itself is a metaphor right there, thinking about the things that you have growing in your life that maybe are not supposed to be there. So I also have a weed in my yard that just sprouted up really tall, despite the fact that it's now freezing outside, and it decided that now was the time it was going to sprout up. And the interesting thing is that we have a super thick barrier to prevent weeds because we tend to get a lot of them in the yard in the summer, especially around August. So this year we kind of went crazy and made it super hard for them to come through. But this particular one, after the plant that was there died off, decided it was going to find its way out. It's a huge, thick, and pretty thick for a plant. And so every time I walk by, I keep getting this thought like, you need to pluck this out before the roots get really in there, right? Before it comes back next year. So the message that the YouTuber had in her video was not all fast growth is good growth, and not all fast growth is God growth, right? I definitely could relate to that because now that I am back in my business, I'm evaluating lessons that I learned from the first go around so that I can now grow more intentional this time. And I was realizing that sometimes opportunities present themselves, they sprout up, and were not part of the plan. Right? They just came out of nowhere, and that's because they were not intentioned to be part of the situation. And those things could be distractions. And if you allow those distractions to stay and fester, grow and spread, then those distractions are going to ruin the plan, right? Those distractions are going to get you off track. Those distractions are going to ruin not only the aesthetic, but it can also cause harm at the root, or something that could have been plucked out actually is now going to have to be dug out, or might sprout something that's more intrusive than it would have been at first. And this brought me to the scripture, Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. When I was looking up this scripture, there was so many scriptures about guarding your heart, right? About guarding and paying attention to what's going on. But I wanted to talk about this particular one. And it reads like this. So above all, guard the affections of your heart, for they affect all that you are. Pay attention to the welfare of your innermost being, for from there flows a wellspring of life. So this includes your thoughts, our wills, our decision-making, our affections. That's what it means when it's talking about the heart, right? Like, this made me think about something strange. Please do not switch off, right? In science, when chemicals are combined, right, they have reactions sometimes. They might bubble up, sometimes they might burn, sometimes they might cause a fire, sometimes they can be irritating, right? And then other chemicals might not have, or might have a good reaction. They could be useful, they can be helpful, like hydrogen and oxygen that gives us water, right? And some others won't even have a negative or positive reaction at all. And sometimes there are people in our lives that cause a certain reaction in us, that cause us to act a certain way, to behave a certain way, to respond and speak in a certain way, just being in our presence. So often you'll hear, okay, everyone is not meant to go where you're going to go, or everyone cannot get you to your next season. They can't go with you to your next season, your next level that you're supposed to be in. And this is basically another way to think about that, right? Because our chemistry, each of us is different and unique and made up of our own special cocktail or combination of characteristics, emotions, feelings. And because of that, when we connect with others, there are different types of reactions that might come about. Certain friends will cause you to be happy when you're in their presence, and other friends will cause you to be irritated, or maybe certain family members might trigger you to get upset, by the way they behave or speak. And certain people just know how to push your buttons, okay? And I always think it's a good time at the end of the year, end of the season, and the beginning of the new year to evaluate your relationships and see which relationships are serving you, which relationships you might need to address certain things so that they can continue to work, and then the relationships that are not serving you that you probably need to let go, right? And so it's not always just relationships. It could be circumstances and situations. It could be, the field that you're in, or the circles, the social circles that you're in. And I have this like little shopping hack from, I want to say, might have been Marie Kondo, somebody similar who deals with organization. And basically there's 4 different quadrants of your emotion towards the things that you purchase. So one is either you like it and need it, or you love it and need it, or you love it and want it, or you like it and want it. Right? So the things that you invest in should either be things that you love and need, or at least love and want. You shouldn't be investing in anything that is just meh, mid, not that important, not that entertaining. And so this is not as easy to do when it comes to people in our lives, to circles and environments, but it's definitely worth being aware and acknowledging that there are certain people, though we may like them, we don't need them, and we may want them, but don't love them or don't love being around them. And so we need to start to be able to distinguish from those individuals, because when I talked about like chemical reactions, those individuals or circles are not bringing out the best in you and are maybe not creating a good chemical connection or a good outcome based upon the encounters that you find yourself. Is it more so negative? Is it not feeding you? Is it not making you feel better? Is it not making you produce more or better, right? Like the weeds that we talked about. I promise you, this is getting somewhere. It looks like the weeds might be flourishing, right? The situation might be of high growth and acceleration, and everything's moving fast and you're having fun, but it may not be necessarily what God intended. It could be a false growth. Then it causes you to be stressed out, and then it causes you to make bad decisions about your health, about your family, about the relationships that you do want to have in your life. So these types of things, while they're happening, they feel like it's great. You feel like it's good, that the thing may be a situation where it's actively distracting you from the slow and steady growth that God had intended for you, because that slow and steady growth is going to build the characteristics that you need for your longevity, right? Not just a quick, fast bloom, right? It's for your longevity. And the crazy part is that before I recorded this, I was like, you know what? Let me go outside and pluck this weed right now so I can be, integral with this video. And when I did it, it came out pretty easy, right? But it was very thick, I keep saying, and heavy. And I was low-key scared of it. And sometimes you think that the things that you need to remove from your life, or the people or places or the circles you need to remove yourself from, are going to be hard. But when you just sort of like go ahead and pull off that band-aid, it becomes easier than you expected. And I had this experience recently in my life where I had to do something hard and I didn't want to face it and I just did it, right? And you'll even see that the things that you thought were mighty trees that were planted and rooted in your life, that they're quick to even remove themselves because they just don't fit in your midst anymore for where you're going. So don't be afraid to guard your heart, your peace, your environment. Don't be distracted by what seems bigger and faster and better. Stay on course and trust that God has what is in your best interest. Trust God's timing, not our timing. So I pray that this was helpful for you. Thank you so much for listening. Please leave me a comment and let me know. Have you had circumstances in your life where you have tried to rush the process, or something came into your life and you was like, oh, this is it, this is my ticket, it's about to go off, right? Or it's about to go down or whatever. You know what I'm saying, right? Have you had those circumstances where you're like, oh, the time is now, like I can see it, I can feel it, let me help you out, God, and let's do this thing, let's go faster and further, now. Have you had those situations where you tried to rush the process and God was like, no, this was a blessing, but this wasn't the end all be all, right? I still need you to build some things. I still need to grow some things in you. I still need to work in you. Have you had that experience? Let me know in the comments so we could chat about it and come back next week. So I'll see you next time.